really do. You're a 21-year-old punk fucking kid. Grandpa's given you everything all your fucking life. You've never had a car payment, a house payment. Everything you live in was given to you by Grandpa. You fucking don't know what it's like to work for a fucking living like I do, to bust my fucking ass and do what I do. And you know what, Sean? You fucked me, and that's the way you got it. But you know what? Your grandpa's money will run out someday, and you'll have to feast for yourself. Get a fucking job, you piece of shit.
Welcome to Behind the Smoke Podcast, Barbecue War Stories. My name is Sean Walchef with Cali Comfort Barbecue. We are recording above the butcher shop in Spring Valley at Valley Farm Market with Derek Marceau. Today is a special day.
Today's a very, very special day. This week's been great. Everything's been going just smooth as ever, man.
Yeah.
It's been great.
This is for those of you first time listening, this is a business and digital marketing podcast as seen through the eyes of barbecue business owners. For us, we're very fortunate to meet some incredible people on our barbecue journey that have introduced us to other incredible people. And thanks to Scott Heath, who was one of our podcast guests, the president of Fox 5. He introduced us to our guest today, and that is Jim Floros, the CEO of Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank. Welcome to Behind the Smoke.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's seriously it's a pleasure for Derek and I. We're very humbled.
It's a huge honor, man. We're
for you
excited.
to take for you to take your time.
Let's see how this goes and see if it's still an honor after.
Right? I promise we won't kick you out.
Yeah, I won't leave you a voicemail like the intro to the podcast. That was a former business partner. One of the things we like to do is talk about the entrepreneurial struggle. As much as everyone wants to get out there and own their own business, there are a lot of things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis that we have to overcome. Part of what we do in this podcast is share those struggles, and there's a reason why people keep grinding the way that they do, and that's because you got to have persistence.
Absolutely, and you're king of persistence. Check my emails if you don't believe me. You guys send me more emails than I know what to do with, and I'm getting notifications every 30 seconds on something that you're either...
I'm trying to break your iPhone.
I think you did it. But yeah, no, it's always being innovative and making sure that we're ahead of the game. And I think just kind of talking with you a little bit earlier, Jim, we've already heard how you guys have that entrepreneurial spirit, and
Absolutely.
You guys are already wanting to be innovative in different things that you guys are doing. So let's kind of dive in, man.
I'm here, buddy.
How did it all start?
The food bank?
Well, yeah.
Or me?
Both.
Okay. Well, what's more interesting? So I'm a Wisconsin boy, and knew I was getting the hell out of Wisconsin at a young age because it's too damn cold.
Close to Madison?
Ripon, right up by Oshkosh, Fond du Lac. And so we had vacation in San Diego when I was a kid. So I drove across country, literally by myself. Didn't know anybody in San Diego. Came out here to college.
Wow.
Back in those days before cell phones or anything like that, I'd stop every night at a Holiday Inn and I'd call my mom and she'd say, "Oh, you're still alive. Call me again tomorrow." And that was it. I mean, it was, you'll figure this out. And so I came out here to college and I've been here ever since. And I'm a career nonprofit guy. So going on 34 years nonprofit. Fell into my first nonprofit job right out of college, Project Concern International at their world headquarters. So I was there for about 7 or 8 years. Then I went over to the Byrne Institute and was there for 20 years. I went there as the development director.
Okay.
And 18 months after I joined the agency, the board fired the CEO and they put me in as the interim CEO on my 33rd birthday.
Really?
I was deer in the headlights. I always had this goal or this hope of being a CEO maybe by the time I was in my 40s. And suddenly here I am and, fake it till you make it kind of thing. And
Sure.
The firefighters really liked me. This is a mustache.
Right.
And so I thought I may never get this opportunity again. So I kind of just grinded away. Like you guys talk about, I just grinded and got the job and lasted 20 years there. And we literally built it to be the top burn foundation in North America. And that was a lot of fun. Then I left to do my consulting business and I wasn't as excited about that as I thought I was going to be. And then somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "We're looking for a new CEO of the San Diego Food Bank. Are you interested?" And I didn't know anything about the San Diego Food Bank. I really didn't. I knew my predecessor. And I said, "Oh, that looks interesting." And I applied for it and they couldn't find anybody better, so they hired me. Best 5 years of my career.
What really brings someone to wanting to do nonprofit stuff? So right outside, you went to USD?
Yes, university.
So
Fellow
beautiful school.
Torero over here.
There he is.
No, there you go.
Yeah.
University suck 'em dry is what we call it.
You ain't lying.
Yeah.
No kidding.
But you knew right out of high school or out of college that you wanted to do?
I did not.
No?
I was not Johnny go save the world type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
My degree was international relations. I thought maybe diplomatic corps, and I thought about going to Washington D.C. and getting my master's and doing that whole thing. But then I became very selfish, thinking I really like it here in San Diego. I think I'm gonna stay. And so then I decided I was going to do PR. Back then, I'm going to do PR. So I kept applying for PR jobs. Well, I didn't have a PR degree. I didn't have a portfolio. I'd never written a press release. I had never done an internship, and I couldn't understand why people wouldn't hire me. And then someone said, well, maybe you should go do an internship at a charity. They'll pretty much take anybody. and so it was because I had the international background. I landed at Project Concern and was grinding out and just doing press releases and writing articles. And then I had the fortunate or unfortunate experience of being successful at fundraising. So, well, hell with PR. You're your fundraiser. And then I fell in love with it. You get the bug of doing the nonprofit thing. And then,
Sure,
I had professors and people talk about their legacy and what they're doing in life and how are they making a difference in the lives of other people. And that really never registered until I had that aha moment, that epiphany. I'm like, oh, that's what they're talking about. This feels really good. And then I was hooked. And then, like I said, that's all I've ever done since I was a youngster. And now I'm, oldster.
Well, I wouldn't call you old, but it is
Not
something
to my face.
Right. It is something that we do talk about. I mean, it's Sean talk about our visions and what do we want out of life? Is it a monetary gain? Is it something that you want to get as many transactional things as you can through the register and get people out? Or is it more about, the communities and giving back and letting your kids see what you're doing and wanting to model after that? And that's always what's been most important to us. And I think we probably found that at a pretty young age. I think we're pretty,
that's great.
I'm 34. So it's cool to see, our mentors do that same thing. We're really excited.
As I've gone on in life, you suddenly start thinking about your legacy and what does your life, mean. And when you're on a porch someday, when you're 90 years old, pooping in your pants, and look back and say, what has my life meant? And I'll look at what I've done, both, at all three different nonprofits, the lives I've saved, lives I've changed, people I've helped in their most dire moment. And what we're doing with the food bank is crazy. We're feeding 370,000 people a month. And
Hold on. How many?
370,000.
370,000
a month.
A month.
That's not an annual.
A month.
Non-duplicated.
Wow.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you're working with over 400 other nonprofit
And
agencies.
that's one of the things I love the most, because, you get into the whole idea about community, and we're local and we're invested in the community, and you get into the science of capacity building and empowerment. And we've got 400 nonprofits. So for your listeners, any nonprofit in San Diego that has a feeding program, more likely than not, they're getting the majority of their food from us.
Yeah.
So that's from the big guys that we all know, but down to little church groups that have a food pantry, what have you. A lot of groups right here in your backyard are getting food from us, and they're helping people in need.
Well, I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, a lot of times people get so caught up in these, welfares and, they're like, oh, the system's so messed up. Everything's fucked up. And it's like, well, it's not about that. It's about the vision. It's about what we're doing. And to be able to see big people doing these things and feeding that many people in need is huge. I mean, it's absolutely huge. It's really, it resonates with me a lot, because that's what I just continue to want to do, is just whatever we can. Sean and I talk about it all the time. It's whatever we can do to help. We need to be the change that we want to see.
Yes.
If we're not that change, then who's going to do it? You can't point at everybody else. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, am I doing what I preach? I'm telling everyone else how we need to change, but am I changing? Am I taking those steps to make sure that we're proactive and doing everything we can do? And it's not just the bottom dollar.
Right. And it's the people you inspire along the way, and maybe you inspire them to do the same thing. So now that's a part of your legacy. I look at people that have worked for me, and they come back to me and say, I learned this from you. I learned that from you. I've got 3 of my VPs at the food bank want to be CEOs, and I tell them the day you get your first CEO job will be my proudest day. And so I'm working to help them because they're part of my legacy, and I'm part of somebody else's legacy. So you got to give back.
Right. Yeah. You can't make, we always talk about not suppressing people. It's like, I want everyone to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can all work together. I'm not going to suppress my employees. If they want to grow, they take initiative, say, hey, I want to come early and learn this. Let's go. I'll teach all day long. I'll do whatever I can. And I want to see you go on and do whatever it is, because I know there's a lot of people that I have right now. It's like, look, you're going to do something. I can tell. I can feel it. And I'm just excited to be able to be a little part of it and watch you grow. That's it's enticing to me.
Yeah, I think one of the things, you never know where that inspiration is going to come from. I was fortunate that my grandfather, who grew up on a farm in Bulgaria, immigrated over here and was able to send me to private school in La Jolla and go to Bishop's. And part of Bishop's curriculum is to make sure that we do community service hours. Those community service hours when you're in high school, I mean, it's a joke. You're just, you hate it. You don't want to do it. We had Shane Walton, who we partner with organizations and training for our barbecue events to help them raise money for at-risk youth. We had him on the podcast and we talked about, really about giving back and, how important it is to us now in our businesses to build those relationships and to actually not just giving back, here's a check, but how do we create opportunities for people to actually come and participate so that they can see the impact, get back to the education. And one of the things I noticed what your mission is education.
Absolutely.
Breaking that poverty cycle. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think that was one of the things that I didn't know. I tell my staff I'm the poster child for the misperceptions people have about what the food bank does. I knew my predecessor. I had no idea. I thought I was just homeless people and people on welfare, and it's not true at all. There's not 370,000 homeless people in San Diego County. But what really excited me is that we're working towards societal change. So we're not just feeding people. We're literally trying to break the cycle of poverty. We know that nutrition-related disease is linked to poverty. So when people have less resources, what they can't afford is protein and fresh produce. But what they can afford is high sugar, high salt, high fat. So now you start seeing generations of unhealthy people directly related to a poor diet, which is directly related to poverty. So obesity, diabetes, hypertension. There's actually all these studies now about mental health issues, that one of the most predetermining factors for mental health issues later in life is hunger at a young age. Not only is it a lack of brain development, but also it's the stress and the anxiety that's involved with not having enough food. So we believe that education is the major vehicle for breaking the cycle of poverty. Well, childhood education starts with childhood nutrition, because we got kids that don't eat over the weekend. They don't eat before they go to school. They're eating a really poor diet, so their brains aren't developing. So they're basically just taking up space in a classroom. And so, the chances of them getting a good education, limited. So it means the chances of getting a good job, limited. Chances of them being able to provide for their family, limited. So chances they're going to be dependent on the food bank may be pretty high. So there's your cycle of poverty.
Right.
The old catchphrase that the food banks use is, if you don't eat, you can't learn. If you don't learn, you can't earn. Yeah. So really what we invest in, we have a full-time nutritionist on staff. Everything we do, we grade everything we distribute. We don't distribute soda or sugar or what have you. And we're teaching people how to eat healthy so that kids can be healthy, go to school, get a good job, and be self-sufficient. And believe me, people who are getting our food, they would much rather have a good paying job and provide for themselves.
Right.
Sure. I mean, it's incredible just to see that mission, because, my wife, we have a 7-month-old and she's educating herself. We're educating ourselves, and everything comes back to that foundational nutrition, from having enough nutrition to be able to have that brain get stimulated in order to...
You talk to any neurologist,
yes,
and they talk about brain development, it's nutrition. A child's brain is 90% developed by the age of 5. Yeah. So you got, 4.5 years ago, buddy, so don't screw it up.
No, my brother-in-law told me this before I even had kids. He was talking about it, but, they were doing a bunch of organic stuff, and really, his kids ate very, very well. And he's like, look, they got like 5 years where they're going to, really soak everything in. They're like sponges right now. And I have to do my job and give them the best opportunity to be the best person they can be. And it is staying away. I mean, I wish I would have known that shit. I mean, Jesus, right? Man, I've been struggling with weight for a long time after playing football. And it's like, dude, if I would have just known, what's that old saying? Like, you teach a guy to fish, you feed him or you give a guy a fish, you feed him for a day, teach him how to fish, feed him for life. It's the same thing. It just goes right back to education, educating those people, letting them understand what it is. I mean, now I played football at Kansas State, and when I go back now, they have nutritionists.
Oh, yeah.
Everything just dialed in. When I went, it was like sloppy joes, and you put as much ranch dressing on as you want.
Exactly.
You literally had a soda machine. You can go get as much soda as you wanted. I mean, it was full sugar, full carb, everything. We literally carb loaded the night before our now they're understanding that's wrong, but we would have pastas and everything the night before because they wanted to get enough carbs in us. They didn't even understand back then.
Right. Yeah.
Now it's like
times have changed.
Yeah. Now
absolutely.
it's like, man, you're not running efficiently if you're doing that.
You're talking about produce, right?
Oh yeah.
So how much produce are we talking?
Well, last year as an organization, we did more than 26 million pounds of food.
26 million pounds.
And about 9 million of that's fresh produce. So 9 million pounds of fresh produce last year. When you guys come out to the warehouse, it is supply chain at its best. I mean, we have full fleet of semi trucks, bobtails, refrigeration trucks, drive-in freezer, drive-in refrigeration. Like I said, we're pushing through 26 million pounds of food, and nearly 9 million of that's fresh produce.
Who do you guys partner with for that produce?
So this is awesome, and this is something that your listeners will find actually educational and interesting. So food waste, first of all, the expiration dates on food, right? All a bunch of BS. There's no national regulation on any of those expirations or best used by dates, except for with baby formula. So the manufacturers use that best used by dates because that's when flavor is at its full peak. It's all a bunch of BS. They want you to think you're going to die. If you eat this one day after, throw it away and buy something else, right?
Yeah.
So we know that the tons and tons, I mean, literally billions of dollars worth of perfectly good food are thrown out every year. So that's that side. But then when it comes to fresh produce, only about 30% of fresh produce that's grown makes it in the grocery store because it's the stuff that's perfect, right? USDA has mandates on size and shape. You go in the store, every cabbage, pretty much exactly the same. Well, what happens is they have a cabbage that's bigger, cabbage that's a little smaller. You're not going to see them on store shelves next to each other. So it has been cheaper for farmers to destroy that product that if you grew it in your backyard, if you grew it in your backyard, you'd eat it, then box it up and get to a food bank. Luckily, in California, there's a program called Farm to Family, and it's run by the California Association of Food Banks. And all the food banks, 41 food banks in California, we all co-op together, and we buy that less than perfect fresh produce for about 12 cents a pound.
Wow.
So last year, that 9 million, 5 million of that was through this program. And your listeners can't see me, but I've seen crazy crap. I've seen watermelons like that. I've seen potatoes the size of your head. During the drought, I saw citrus that was really small. Right before the end of the holidays, I saw some pears, and they were beautiful. They were just absolutely beautiful, but they were like 2 inches, 3 inches. They're just tiny little pears, and you're not going to see a little pear in the grocery store, but it's beautiful to us. And
absolutely.
So we're getting a lot of that product.
That commodity product that people want, people buy with their eyes. So that's what it is. And if it just doesn't fit that, and that's actually a thing that we're having a little problem with organics. Yeah. It's that it's not as pretty as the other, but, just educating again, your consumer, what it's about. And there are flaws on it and there are, different things.
But if you grew it in your backyard, you did it.
Right.
I saw a video, and it's a farmer at a farmer's market. And he says, okay, I'll have one head of kale, and I put that one head here, and it will sit there all day because people think there's something wrong with it. But if I bring 25 out, I'm going to sell 18. So I have to sacrifice 7 to sell 18. Well, that's the same at grocery stores. They overstock because it has to look big and beautiful and bountiful, but they know that 30% of that they're going to throw away or compost.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I think that goes right to the heart of problems, not just in grocery stores, like Derek, but, at restaurants too.
Oh, yeah.
Part of what we're trying to do is figure out a way to not overportion. Like it's great to come to our restaurant and have a two combo meal where you get ribs and tri-tip, and then you get potato salad and mac and cheese. But at the end of the day, it might be way too much food.
It is.
It's great for people. Oh, I got my money's worth. But maybe it's better if we reduce the price of the actual menu.
Maybe
item.
they only eat half of it.
Yeah,
so
maybe
the rest is going to the landfill. But you can't do that anymore, right? It has to go to compost.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the composting.
So we were putting about 600,000 pounds of refuse in the landfill each year, and a big part of that was a lot of the was produce, but it's also canned food that's expired and all that. So we very innovative. Like I said, we're making it up as we go, and we partnered with a company in New Jersey called Forest Solutions. And so we're doing on-site composting at the food bank. So it's 2 pieces of machinery. One is called a turbo separator, and basically it's wet loads or dry loads. The wet loads are really interesting because you have canned product The cans are sealed. The food is in the can. You just dump all these cans in this machine. It crushes the can. It squeezes the food out. The food kind of goes this way into this one big bin. That metal can's a little ball of metal, which we'll recycle for money. Then we take that food product. We mix it with wood shavings, like you'd see on the bottom of like a guinea pig cage. They call it Echo Flakes. Goes into this huge vessel. The digester, it's probably about 70 or 80 feet long. It looks like a spaceship. In this big tube, it rotates. It heats the product. It kills the pathogens. And finished compost comes out in 5 days.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not even smart enough to understand.
No, that's amazing.
So we're doing about 80 to 100 cubic yards of compost now a month.
And you're talking about what's the impact, the financial impact?
Well, about at least about $25,000 to $35,000 a year in savings, dump fees, and all that. What's cool about that, and I always judge the intelligence of people I'm touring on what they ask me. They ask me what I do with the compost, and you guys haven't really gotten there yet, so we'll just kind of let you give you a pass. But we could sell it, but we have 400 nonprofits that a lot of them have community gardens. So it's kind of a cool story. We take the food product, we turn it into compost, we give it to our partners for free. Right. They grow fresh fruits and vegetables, and so then that's in keeping with us being a nutrition bank. So that's awesome.
Got your own little ecosystem going.
We really do.
Yeah.
And then we've done a bunch of other stuff at the warehouse because that Erwin Jacobs guy, very fond of him.
Big time.
big guy. And he gave me $1 million 2-3 years ago, and we put 1,400 solar panels on the roof. So that's saving us $120,000 a year, which equates to about 600,000 meals. And if you go to the freezer, you guys will see that we have this stuff called phase change material that holds the cold in, so we can turn the compressors off at night, so that saves energy. So everything we're doing as far as energy savings is resulting in enough savings for 850,000 more meals. And then we've gotten probably half a dozen or more awards in the last year or two. The best one is that we were awarded the LEED Gold Version 4 award.
Wow.
First food warehouse in the world. In the world. I thought it was just first in the U.S., and I'm at the press conference, and they got my talking points there for me. And some gal who's some environmental group in Poland, she came up to me. She goes, "Oh no, I'm sorry to tell you, you're the first in the world. No food warehouse has ever achieved this." I'm like, "Oh, now we're the World Food Bank. Cool, I'll take that."
That's great.
No, that's another little feather in the cap that you can't
take that away. Can't take that away.
Really,
where did you learn to take on the entrepreneurial side onto the nonprofit? Because I think that's probably very challenging for, you have a board of directors, you have people that,
well, first of all, I believe in begging for forgiveness rather than asking permission. That's got me.
We're good at that.
That's got me pretty far. I don't know. I'm Greek, and I'm basically a Greek businessman that works for a nonprofit, and my first gig at Project Concern International. One of my bosses was from IBM World Headquarters. They had this program called Executives on Loan, and they would take, old aging executives who were heading towards retirement. They'd pay their salary the last 3 years, farm them out to nonprofits and teach us the real world. So, he said, "Hey, Jim, don't fall in love with your charity. Businesses do business things for business reasons. Their philanthropy is tied to their organizational goals. You help them achieve those goals. They will help you. If you don't, they'll go find another charity because there's 10,000 worthwhile charities." So that alone has set me aside from everybody else. In my career, I've heard 250 times, "Wow, we've never heard that from anybody in a nonprofit," because you guys just say, "Ooh, help us, we're a good cause." Right. So then the Burn It Suit was a completely local nonprofit as well. And so, you get a good idea, you get an idea that maybe works and fits your mission. Somebody comes to you with a good idea. I'm like, we can do that. And then we get the funding for it, and you want to be cutting edge. You want to think outside the box. I got a great, really talented, senior staff, and we sit in these staff meetings, and they all have as stupid and immature sense of humor as I do. So we're in tears, but they're smart, and we come up with crazy stuff. I'm like, all right, let's do it. You guys may know Assembly member Lorena Gonzalez.
Yes.
You also learn with Lorena, you generally don't say no to whatever. Lorena gets pretty much anything she wants. And she's a huge supporter of ours, big supporter of ours. And she came to me last year, and my program gal, and Vanessa, and we were meeting with her. She goes, "I want you guys to become a diaper bank." Like, diaper bank? She said, "Well, single mom on food stamps, CalFresh. She gets a job, which is what we're all about, lifting people out of poverty and have them be independent, and that's awesome. And then she gets subsidized daycare, which is another hurdle, another big step, because all right, what do I do with my kids? I got a job, but now what do I do with my kids? I was better off on food stamps. So what's the motivation to get off food stamps?
Totally.
She gets subsidized daycare, another hurdle, another step forward. And then she goes to daycare and they say, you need to show up with 8 to 10 diapers. Well, diapers are expensive. And so end of the month, she runs out of money. She runs out of diapers, can't take her kids to daycare, which means she can't go to work. She does that enough times. She loses her job. She's back on food stamps. So something as simple as diapers could be that one little piece of the pie that's the difference between somebody becoming self-sufficient. So she pitched me. I looked over at Vanessa. I said, what do you think? She goes, yeah. All right, we're a diaper bank. And so there's a national diaper bank. We actually registered. Who knew there was a national diaper bank? So now we're registered and we can buy diapers and wipes and formula at a discount. People are donating, a lot of diapers to us and all that. So that was just like, that was the level. And then I told my board, I guess they're probably not listening. Maybe they are. I told, guess what, guys? We're a diaper bank. They just tell them after the fact, right? It's like,
right.
and they go, that makes sense.
But it's incredible because you're taking that risk on
going,
this is what our mission is, except now I'm working with partners. I'm working with other leaders in the community that are telling us this is what our need is.
Yeah.
If that need is tied back to your educational mission, even though it's not directly related to food, it actually absolutely is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, it's a pass-through program.
Correct.
The food passes through the child's body and it goes into the diaper.
There you go.
If you have to explain the joke, it's not that funny. But you want to be a risk taker. You need to take calculated risks, and sometimes things might not work out, but you want to keep pushing that envelope. You can't be great unless you think great and be big, and sometimes it may not pan out. But
not everything's a home run.
No.
It's when you don't hit those home runs, you start to learn, and that's where all the growth comes. You take those risks, calculated risks that didn't work out. Okay, shit. Then reassess. What do you do wrong? Yeah. And then go from there.
We're another case. We acquired the North County Food Bank about 2 years ago, and I had funding sources up and one thing I've learned about North County, it's a completely separate community, and they take great pride in that.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking to a Rotary Club up there. And I'll tell this stupid joke. I'll say, I've discovered there's a county between Orange County and San Diego called North County, and they all laugh like hell. They think that is hell. Yes, damn right. There's a fence at the 56, and we don't dare go south.
Right.
And they take great pride in that. So I've actually stumbled on a market pretty much the size of Cleveland, and the fact now I have a facility up there, they love that, and they've really embraced us. But I got a lot of pushback from people saying there's no poverty in North County. What are you guys doing up in North County? Well, there's tremendous amounts of poverty up there, and so it was a kind of a bold move, and we'd had a record-breaking year fundraising. So my board said, this is the time that you invest in expansion, because I had some great board members, great business minds. And so we committed to it. It was adding probably about $350,000 to my nut. And it's like, well, I bet you I can raise at least that much from just up here. North County. All the big companies are up there. There's some great donors up there.
Right.
And so we've launched it. Been there about 2 years. I need a new facility, so we're probably going to do another bold move and probably try to run a capital campaign and raise like $6 million for a new facility and just keep pushing the envelope.
And how do you go about doing that?
I have no idea. No, well, you get a consultant, somebody who has a lot of experience in that. And generally, you have your nut of what you would need to raise, and then you start meeting with people, and you try to have raised at least 50% of it before you even announce that you're doing the capital campaign.
Yeah.
And, we've got some pretty heavy hitters. And if we do something really cutting edge, really innovative, a couple of the people that I'm reaching out to, they could just write a check for the whole thing.
Sure.
Now, how does someone get involved? Let's just say they don't have a ton of money to give, and they just want to volunteer. I mean, what's the steps for that?
We hate volunteers. We don't use them at all. No, we love volunteers. Are integral in everything we do. We actually have 20,000 registered volunteers. We have 25,000 volunteer visits a year. What volunteers do tonight will be part of a distribution tomorrow. And all nonprofits will say, volunteerism is our lifeblood, and no more true than with the San Diego Food Bank, because literally they're helping us push out that 26 million pounds of food, and they're making backpacks, they're doing senior boxes, and the volunteers range from Girl Scout troops to Harvard Alumni Association. We get big corporations that come in, do team building, VPs, CEOs. I think we have like 400 companies that actually volunteer with us.
That's awesome.
I listened to a podcast with one of your leaders recently, and they talked about a program that you guys went into to keep volunteers coming back, to reduce, to have better retention, talk about the program and why that was important. Because I found that fascinating. It's something that you're always just trying to get volunteers. But, as Derek and I, we put on charity events and we try to get people to help us put those events on. We find that sometimes it's better to have less volunteers because we need people that have actually done the event in the past to give them those responsibilities.
People everybody volunteers for a different reason. Some need it on their resume. Some people need to get community service hours. Sometimes we get some court-ordered nonviolent people that get forced into servitude. But, and it's just a lot of people are realizing they want to do something impactful. We get a lot of retirees. We have the 20,000, but some of those are just people who only volunteer once a year. But we have that core of 100 to 200, and there's just the hardcore. There's some of them that I see, they're at the warehouse more than I am. And so it's just giving back, making them feel appreciated, doing little things for them. We'll do, ceremonies and all that. We're working on a program where there's like a point system, and then you can win swag for whatever you're doing. So we're just starting to kind of roll that out.
Nice.
That's amazing. I mean, like I said, it's so cool to see what's going on. And a lot of times people don't even know. Like I didn't know a ton about it, and just to learn, doing my due diligence on everything, it's really, really cool to see. How did it all get started?
Well, from what I understand, so last year was our 40th anniversary. So I think it was, late 70s, and they were doing something down in the South Bay, and it was just like a turkey drive. Mm-hmm. And then they started seeing that people had needs throughout the year. So then they got a small warehouse. They started getting food. It wasn't that much, but they started doing stuff year round. And then I think the first food bank in the United States was right around that time, maybe a little before that. And I think it was in Phoenix. And so basically that concept just started, and then you start realizing the number of people that are really in need, and it's not just homeless.
Yeah, I realized it this year. I did on Thanksgiving. I posted on social media about giving away. I said, if someone doesn't really have a turkey for Thanksgiving, I came in early in the morning and I said, I want to put 20 half turkeys on the smoker, and if you don't have one, come pick one up.
Nice.
And I'm just going to donate them to you guys. And I was so surprised with the amount of people that actually needed it. And, I had a lot of people saying, what, Derek, well, what if someone doesn't need it and they just come take it? I was like, well, that's on their conscience. That's not on me. That's on them. I can't not do it because of someone being negative. I'm just going to do whatever I can to be positive and try to get back. And it was, like I said, I was surprised on how many people didn't have something.
Oh, yeah.
And we were able
a lot of people are very proud,
yeah,
and they won't take our help. And we tell them there's enough food for everybody. Come get the food. Oh, no, there's people who have greater needs than me. I'm not coming in. We almost have to say, no, really, this is here for you.
Yeah, I think one of the things, at least for Derek and I, it's very important is there is that sense of pride, but, it's the children, children that it means so much to us to see you guys doing like a backpack program. And that's something that I'm sure there's a story behind why there's a backpack program, because you can feed the child,
right,
Monday through Friday, but then they have to go home on the weekend, right?
Well, it's crazy. When I came to the food bank and they were taking me out to all the program sites so I could try to speak somewhat intelligently about what we're doing. And we're heading to an elementary school, and I asked my my VP of program, well, what's this? Well, this is a backpack school. Well, what's that? Well, we have elementary age school kids that their last meal of the week is on Friday. They get fed during the week through a program called the Free and Reduced Lunch Program. That's a federal program, Title I schools. So these kids get a breakfast and lunch during the week. But then their last meal of the week is on Friday. They have lunch on Friday, and then they will literally go all weekend without eating anything or very little. I'm like, BS. There's no way. In today's society, we got kids that go an entire weekend without eating, but I've been there. I've seen it. I've talked to the parents. I've talked to the students, the teachers, and, these kids are non-performing. They're just in a daze in classroom. You hear stories about teachers who literally out of their own pocket will buy food and have it in their desk because they know what kids are not eating. Right. So these are not just hungry kids. These are chronically hungry kids. So no good news in something like that, but, we're giving these kids a backpack of nutritious food on Friday, gets them through the weekend. Monday, they turn in the empty backpack. The next Friday, we do it all over again. So this year, we're in 41 schools and 12 school districts, just under 2,000 kids get one of those backpacks every Friday. And I still got 10, 12 schools on a waiting list. And we have we haven't talked about it, but we do a lot of serving the military. I've got a backpack school on Camp Pendleton. So those are all military kids.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
You wouldn't think that would be a need.
You wouldn't think about it even just right now. People going a whole weekend without eating, and it just goes back to you can't expect a kid to perform at an optimal level if he's not eating. It's.
And getting back to what we were talking about breaking the cycle of poverty, this program is laser focused on having these kids be healthy and be able to concentrate, sleep well, over the weekends, because a lot of times if they're not eating, they're not sleeping, then they come back to school and they're not rested. So again, they're not on their best form. So it's about these kids being able to be healthy, relax, study, get a good education, take care of themselves.
It's so important. Very, very important. So talk about a little bit about some of your war stories, some of the things that didn't go, programs that you maybe rolled out that didn't work out, and what you learned from them.
Well, I just haven't had any of those.
We forget about most of them too.
I've had small turds. This last year we have a thing called the virtual food drive, and so people can go online and buy food on our behalf. It's really popular because we have people that are well-intentioned. They'll do a food drive, but maybe it's a half a barrel of food. Well, I'm sending a driver and a truck out to deliver the barrel, to pick up the barrel. So we ask them, well, would you be interested in this virtual food drive? So it's like a storefront, right? You go on, you take the items you want to buy. You're buying food on our behalf. You take it across a scanner, it beeps, and then you create your grocery bill, and now you're buying food on our behalf. So we can customize virtual food drives for companies, whatever. They get a special link and they can email it out to their contacts. Big companies will do internal competitions and all that. So I had this great idea that we're going to do the College Alumni Association Virtual Food Drive Challenge. I'm thinking, the competition of colleges and sports teams, and it'll be great. And someone will break down the Big Ten, the Pac-A, all that. Purdue is the only one that participated. Yeah. And I think maybe we got to do a better job of rolling it out. So I think it still has potential, but a few of them push back and say, well, no, we're raising money for our own alumni association, but I think we're going to try to do something again this last year, but that was a big turd.
That'll make my wife happy. She's a Boilermaker.
Yeah, they won. And you know who came in second? Nobody.
One of one.
And I'm sure there's other failures, but I just, I've mentally just erased them from my mind. I may come up with one.
Talk about the challenges, just everyday challenges.
I have, so I'm a career nonprofit guy. A couple of things. One of the things that grinds me, and maybe I'm a little different than maybe some, but when people say, well, people who can't cut it in the for-profit side, private sector, they're the ones that end up in the nonprofit. That just pisses me off like you can't believe, because actually it's just the opposite. You see people who are in the private sector and they go work nonprofit and they go, oh my God, this is really hard. Yeah. You can't afford to pay your employees a lot. So you got to have people that are so dedicated to the cause. They're willing to be brave enough to have the courage to say, I'm going to make less money because I want to do something that's impactful. I was talking to one of my staffers the other day about, if I was in the private sector, I'd be living in Rancho Santa Fe, but I live in the same house I bought in Chula Vista when I was 36 years old, because that's enough. I raise my kids. I have a comfortable lifestyle, but it's about having the courage of doing less, doing more with less. So you depend on volunteers. And that's a workforce that you hope these people are going to perform like they're a paid employee, but they may not. You work for a volunteer board of directors. You raise every dollar that you're going to spend. So it is a strange existence, and there's nothing better. And everybody has bad days, but you go home and go, well, that's why I do it. I'm helping all these people, so it gets you through that.
Have you seen a trend of it getting harder to raise capital? Or the businesses that have always stepped up still doing what they've done for the past 10 years, or are people wanting to do more volunteering and not, give as much cash per se?
Well, that's a complicated question. The thing is, I've been successful at every place I've been as far as fundraising and all that. It's all about having some common sense, mutually beneficial relationships. We're talking about with the guy, IBM guy. I go into every partnership, like, if I partner with you guys, first thing I'm thinking about is not feeding kids. I'm thinking about, okay, what do you want? What do you need? How do I help you be successful with your company? How do I bring in more clients? How do I give you visibility? And then after that partnership or whatever we do together, you go, oh, that was good. I really like the food bank. They get it, right? And let's do it again. So my success has been building long-term relationships and partnerships. And I know these people keep coming back. And that's how I build, because I'm not going after those same dollars. And when I came over here from the Burn Institute, what the Burn Institute does and the food bank could not be more different. But all these sponsors and all these donors followed me over because they said, well, Jim gives as good as he gets. He understands that it's a relationship and a partnership. And you see our media campaigns. I mean, my sponsors who are sponsors of the Holiday Food Drive, they're participating in $1 million earned media campaign. And so, I mean, they're getting huge visibility, and we are really clever on how we do our media buys. And, Scott Heath and Bob Bollinger and people who are in media say, our arms hurt from Jim twisting our arms because we squeeze out every possible dollar we can get. But, and we have TV stations now that literally are competing to want to be our TV partner.
Well, it's got to be great to see guys like Scott Heath that understand the vision too, and it's not just always about the transactional thing. He understands what it is to give back, and if he can be a part of it, I can't speak for him, but I'd imagine that's what he's like. Okay, well, keep twisting my arm, we'll fucking figure it out.
I remember before Scotty was a GM, he was a general sales manager, and we were friends, and all that. And my wife does those trips, as I was telling you about, with them, but we weren't getting as much love as we wanted in the morning news, right? We weren't getting as much visibility. We weren't getting as much airtime at the station. So I just said, can you help me? So, here's Scotty, he goes up to the morning producer, he puts his arm around him, and he's got a sandwich and a 6-pack of beer. He goes, come on, we're going to take care of my buddy Jimmy, right? You're going to help Jim out, right? And, and that's how, he made it happen. Then he becomes a GM. Well, then, we're all, I just copy him on an email, and the whole world just pays attention. But, it's relationships. You guys know that. Everything I do, it's about relationships. People like you. People want to support you. There's never a hard sell. I'm never really grinding people for a donation. Basically, we tell them our story. If they like it, they're going to support us. If it's just not their thing, well, I've educated somebody else about hunger and what the issues are in town, and then they move on and do their own thing.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand. Sean and I talk about it a lot, but you really kind of hit the points on it. I think leaders need to realize that you serve. Your purpose is to serve other people. And it's not like you don't lead by the front. It doesn't matter where you're at. You serve the community. You serve other people. And you saying, okay, I'm about relationships, meeting those people. And it's like, how can I be a service to you? What added value can I give? And then you create a long-term relationship. So it's not just, what are we doing this year? It's, what are we going to do in the next 10 years? What are we going to do in the next, where are we going to be?
There's a guy in town, and he's kind of a big deal, a heavy hitter, Malin Burnham, and I know him pretty well. And his thing is, his motto, he actually put it on a business card, service before self. And you really start thinking about having the courage to do something in your life that's bigger than you are. It's not just, it's great that you take care of your kids, and it's great that you coach your kids' sports, and I did all that, but doing something beyond that, and maybe some self-sacrifices for a greater good, because if everybody thought that way, the world would be a better place. And that sounds a little corny, but then when you live it, then suddenly, you kind of get it. It's like, wow, makes me feel good about who I am and what I'm doing. And my kids grew up with that. So they don't know any better, right? Sure. They grew up dragging them to firefighter spaghetti dinners and all the different things we had to go out to. And they came along, and they love it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to what we were talking about is, Scott Heath, when he was here on the podcast, he talked about how...
Did you guys actually get a chance to say anything, or did Scott just cover the whole hour?
No, so Scott was fantastic.
We introduced him.
And tell us when you're done, Scott.
But
I love Scott.
But no, what he talked about was, how he, got on his journey was he was always about learning about who he was serving. And, the more that we focus as leaders to the people that we're trying to do business with and learn their essence and their whys, how can we be of service to them? It's incredible how many opportunities open up, because you realize that, through education, through sharing, through transparent honesty, people are in business to make money. And, as a nonprofit, there's nothing wrong with that. And you go into those meetings embracing that and going to find out, well, how can I help your overall mission? And maybe that mission is maybe they're having a tough time with engagement with their core staff. Yeah. And maybe doing something for the food bank is going to change that. It's going to create an annual event that changes the dynamic of that workforce. That CEO is going to be forever grateful because of that, that opportunity.
We get a lot of groups come in, they do just that, team building, and bring their executives in or what have you. So, I mean, it's basically trying to be a good person doing good things. I actually had a friend, he was a general manager of a car dealership, and he was, a salesman, right? And he let me sit in one of his sales meetings, and it was pretty powerful. And then he's, and I'm not a super religious guy, but he's, quoting the Bible and stuff. And then his whole thing was, if you do something nice for somebody, it may be complimenting somebody on their shoes or with their hair, or you hold the door for them, or you say a kind word, and that lifts that person up, and maybe that person has a little better day, and then you hope that person goes and does it for somebody else, and then for somebody else, and you kind of think of it's like a little corny, but then it's not. So I mean, I've done that most of my life. I go out of my way to kind word, and if you compliment somebody on a tie they wore or a pair of shoes or something, then the next time they look at those shoes in their closet, they're like, oh yeah, last time I wore these, somebody complimented me on these. I look good in these. And that's kind of helping people.
Sure. I think people need to realize too, it's really easy to be negative. It takes sometimes a lot of effort to make sure that you're going above and beyond and saying those positive things. Positive affirmation goes so much further than people understand. Patting my employees on the back. I was brought up with playing sports and stuff, where it was more of a discipline, and very rarely did you get a ton of praise.
Because you'd be soft,
right? And now that's how at first I started approaching my employees. I push, beat them down, and then slowly build them back up. Now you're kind of realizing, it doesn't have to be that way. If they do something good, pat them on the back.
Yeah.
Just help them out. And they could be having a horrible day, or something could be happening at home. They come in, they're bringing it to work, and then you just say something like, hey, dude, you're looking sharp today, whatever it is. They're like, okay, you can change their attitude like that. And then that's contagious. It's 100% contagious. They could have been a cancer for that day and brought everybody down, or they could be the positive light that you wanted that's going to uplift everybody.
Absolutely.
And that's where it starts.
When you're in a position of authority, you really don't realize the power you have. And I didn't really realize this because I was, a CEO at a young age. I thought I was going to have this great mentor who was going to teach me all this stuff, so I had to figure it out myself. But when I was at the Burn Institute, the Coronado firefighters used to do a spaghetti dinner for us every year. I'm like, well, they don't care if I show up, I mean, it's, they're fine. They know I love them and whatever. Well, they kept saying, well, why isn't Jim coming? But whatever. It meant something to them. So every year I pack up the family and we'd head out to the spaghetti dinner, and I have a plate of spaghetti with the firefighters and hang out with them. And that meant the world. And now, I go over to the food bank and we have 60 employees, and I had an experience, at the Burn Institute where I said something to some employee. 10 seconds after I said it, I was probably a snarky little joke. I didn't even remember I said it. And this employee obsessed about what I said the entire weekend, thought I was going to fire him, and it came into me all upset on Monday morning. I'm like, what? I said what? And I didn't. And so everything you say has this great power, but it also has the opportunity to do something great. So if I hear something, I walk through the warehouse probably half a dozen times a day, and I hear something good from senior staff about somebody in the warehouse. I'm like, hey, I hear good things about you. Keep up the good work. And he goes home and tells his wife, hey, Jim came by and said I was doing a good job.
Huge.
And you have this huge power, and it's a burden, but it's also kind of an obligation. It's a great thing.
We have a manager meeting every Monday, and we go around and talk about positives and negatives, and who's going above and beyond, who's taking initiative. And I will go to them every single time and just same concept. Just tell them, hey man, we just had a manager meeting. You came up a lot and it was extremely positive. I just want to tell you, good job. Man, you can just see it on their face right away, how excited they are, because, sometimes I get myself, I'll walk around with that resting bitch face, right? Where I just got so much shit to do.
Yeah. Is that what you call it?
Right. And
people feed off of that.
Totally.
Totally. I had a CEO one time when I was really young, and I walked down the hallway, and I was like 24, and here comes the CEO, and I go, good morning. And I don't think he heard me and didn't make eye contact, walked by. I'm like, I'm screwed. I'm getting fired. And I was like, for the next week, I thought he don't even remember walking by me.
Yeah, sure. That's exactly how I get sometimes. I get this tunnel vision. We got so much stuff going on, and someone's like, oh man, you just weren't really approachable. Well, I have to look at myself in the mirror and say, look, you need to make the change.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that everyone knows that they can come talk to you. I have a presence just in being big, right? I'm 6'3", 300 pounds. just that alone is intimidating.
Try having one eyebrow, man. People think I'm pissed. They think I'm pissed all the time.
Yeah. So I mean, it's you have to make sure that those little things that you don't think are a big deal are really a big deal.
They really are.
I think it comes down to gratitude and those micro moments that you have throughout the day, and especially as the leader, as leaders of our organizations, what we're trying to do, and do something bigger than our restaurant, our butcher shop, our events, partner with people that have really the pulse of what, our region, this is our region. This is San Diego. This is something that we take pride in. And there's so many times throughout the day where it's easy to let all the stress of all the things that are mounting. But if you take the time for those micro moments and you really embrace that, the opportunities are endless,
One of the things I try to teach my kids, I mean, you're here and you can have a good attitude or a bad attitude, but the bottom line is you're still going to be right there. So why not have a good attitude, glass half full, because you're in the same spot. You might as well enjoy the ride a little bit, because that's your attitude's not going to change where you are. It is what it is.
Sure. Talk about the events. I mean, you guys are very event driven, and for Derek and I don't know how we seem to keep adding events to the schedule.
It's tough.
But it's become a foundation of who we are and what we want to do, because the event isn't about Cali Comfort. It's not about Valley Farm. It's about growing the sport of barbecue, growing the region,
and
celebrating
visibility for you guys,
and visibility and the opportunity to meet, people. It's PR, back to what you were talking about in the beginning. You were looking for a PR job, but once you stop focusing on yourself or your own business and start focusing on what's bigger than us.
Well, you guys are a lot smarter than you look. Let me tell you.
We like it that way.
That's
Just
don't
play poker with us.
They call it country. They call that country dumb, right?
That's right.
Well, what you put your finger on, a lot of people don't get it. You don't, like, for a nonprofit. If you're just doing an event to raise money, then you shouldn't be doing the event. There's so much more. Sure, you want to make money because that helps, but it's a threshold that people are introduced to your organization and they find out about who you are and what you are, and the event kind of draws them in, and then hopefully they get excited about what you're doing, and then you hopefully take them to go from an event donor to a food bank donor, and then you build it into. I started our gala as part of my development program. It's gonna be the centerpiece of all these other things I'm doing, but it gives me an excuse to ask people for money. It gives me an excuse to bring people together, celebrate the organization, bring in corporate sponsors. I get them into the warehouse. So now when I give you guys a tour of the warehouse, we refer to that as the drink the Kool-Aid tour. And I'm force feeding the Kool-Aid. I bring them in the far east side of the warehouse, and I walk them through all the stacks of food to the west side, so they have to see all this food. And then, that's how I get them, right?
That's fantastic.
I've been accused of having a cult, but it's for good.
It's for good.
Yeah.
No, but the gala, I mean, it goes back to what you were talking about with the firefighters, and what we've found is that when we have partnerships with people that help us put on our events, when Matt Savant, the CEO of the San Diego Gulls, is actually at our event in Spring Valley participating as a judge, his whole front office is out here cooking as a barbecue team. It changes everything, because now they understand the bigger picture of who their partner is. And it's not just, we're going to lip service. We're going to tell Sean and Derek, hey, this is what we're going to do. No, they're actually there. And for us, it means the world.
Yeah, it's a vehicle, right? Yeah. You mentioned we do the gala, and we were talking about it before we started, that we do a gala in the warehouse, and it's 3 months out and we're already sold out.
It's fantastic.
My favorite event that we do, I love the gala, but the San Diego Blues Festival is actually our event. And I'm a big blues guy, and I came to the food bank, and the jury was still out. There were people who weren't in love with the event because the business model was not where it needed to be, because we're still not in the entertainment business. We still have to raise money. But I thought, I got to fix this thing, because this is so cool that we're doing a blues festival. So we've got the business model, and we're doing well. We do it the weekend after Labor Day. It's right down on Embarcadero North, right by Seaport Village, right on the water. There's a thin slice of park. 2 stages, 9 bands. When this band finishes, this one starts, boom, 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 like that. Last year, our headliner was Mavis Staples. We've had Elvin Bishop. We've had Los Lobos. We've had Eric Burden. And so, a fantastic day of music. We'll get about 4,000 or 5,000 people, and then we have 2 VIP areas. But the best story, my best experience, is that my first year, they said, well, we want you on stage before every band to talk about the food bank. I'm like, well, I can do that, right? And they said, well, you're up there. Do you want to introduce the bands? I'm like, really? I get to do that? It's like the best day of my life. Right? So, and I'm hanging out with Elvin Bishop and, and just really nice, great artists that just want to play music and all that. And it's just so much fun.
Well, it's great that you have a board of directors that supports that, because part of what Derek and I have learned is, putting on events, it takes a lot of money to put them on just to begin with, let alone to get to the point where you can, let people know what your bigger vision is, and then to get through those first couple events, you got to be very strategic, lean. You got to figure out ways to get people involved that'll actually help you get the event off the ground.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, if you're really trying to do an event and you're just trying to raise money, it's probably not going to work right away. And you have to go into it understanding that. You have to understand that you're gaining value, but it's not a monetary value. So you're getting exposure, you're doing things. Sean and I mean, if we're in it for money, we're fucking the wrong thing. We fucking lose our ass all the time on these events.
There was this TED Talk thing, and they were talking about the difference in private sector and nonprofits. And private sector, you start a company, you don't expect to really turn a profit for 3 years. You cannot do that in nonprofit. You're not making money from the first moment. Oh my God. And you're not making money, and how you do this, and they don't have that vision that, it takes time to develop those relationships.
It does. It does. We have people that come to us a lot and ask us questions about, throwing events. And that's one of the main things. We're like, look, we get that it's beautiful and sexy and it's really appealing, but understand that it's a lot of hard work, and it's the countless nights that we have that where we don't sleep, and we're just going in. It takes a toll on our families, and we're just continuing to push, and takes a toll on our pockets too, because we're not getting all the money back. But it's bigger than us. It's bigger than us. It's the vision, and as long as you can educate the other event people that want to throw it, that's what it's about. And it will come if you throw out great events and
you're investing in them.
But it's not just this all of a sudden, hey, let's throw an event and we're going to make fucking $20,000. It just doesn't fucking happen.
It doesn't happen. Talk about your role now on a macro scale with the California as the president of all the food banks.
I think I missed a meeting. So the organization's called the California Association of Food Banks. We were talking about it. They run that fresh produce program. That program brings in about 175 million pounds of fresh produce for food banks throughout California that would have gone to the landfill. So I, been with the food bank 5 years. 2 years in, they asked me to join the board. And then last year, the board chair decided not to re-up. And I was sitting there holding my you-know-what. And they basically said, interested in being board chair. Well, I always knew I eventually would do it anyway, but I thought I'd have another year or two. So I'm the board chair, which is great for me personally. It's great for the San Diego Food Bank. I'm the first board chair from an independent food bank in the history of the organization.
Really?
So that's really huge for us.
What does that mean?
Well, there's a national food bank called Feeding America. Okay. And that's they're run out of Chicago, and there's about 200 of them, and they're the big 800-pound gorilla. They're not as entrepreneurial. They're not as invested in the local community because, they can't be, because they're so big. They have to do things a certain way, and they have guidelines or policies, and something that maybe works in Chicago maybe doesn't work here. So I don't want Big Brother telling me what to do.
Well,
so that's what
you already talked about it. Things that work in North County are different than how they work down here. And your ability to pivot and your ability to embrace that micro community where you're at gives you leverage.
Exactly.
Because then you can buy into that. They're not going to buy into you until you buy into them.
Exactly. And so, the national keeps looking at California because this is how much fresh produce it's grown in California. Right. And they keep looking at that 175 million pounds, and they'd like to have that for throughout the U.S. But because we're independent, we're on our own, and we'll have a relationship. But so actually, they know who I am.
I'm sure they do, but I'm sure the farmers that are actually getting paid now for something that they used to not get paid for.
Perfect.
They're grateful.
Everybody wins because the farmers get a tax write-off on product that was going to go either they were plowing it under fertilizer or it's going to the landfill. So it helps them. The environmentalists like it because it's not going to the landfill. And then obviously the food banks are getting all this great product. And if you looked at it, it looks perfect. Sometimes it's just too much of a product or what have you. So food banks are benefiting. The people we feed are benefiting. It's a win-win-win.
Talk about your marketing approach. I know I'm very impressed. For us, digital marketing is something that's one of the forefronts. Is the reason why our restaurant's still open. to this day. And the more that we embrace social and all the different avenues that we have, the more awareness that we're getting for not just our restaurant, but our events and our mission. And you guys have really done an incredible job.
It takes money to make money.
It does.
And it is a business, and we invest in that. And, we do media buys with TV and radio stations, and generally I'll be able to find sponsors that'll pay for that. And then they get huge visibility. So sometimes when I partner with a company, the money they give me is not out of their philanthropy budget. It's out of their marketing budget.
Smart.
So you imagine, like, I have 2 big sponsors for the holiday food drive, and they each give me X number of dollars, and it comes out of their marketing budget, but they're part of a $1 million campaign. So it's about awareness. It's about visibility. Digital media is insane. It's intimidating. It's Big Brother. They know what you are, who you are, when you want to be there, what you like, what you don't like. And then you open up an app on your phone, and there's an ad there from the San Diego Food Bank saying, buy a hunger bag at Vons.
It's a trip.
Like, what? Yeah. So it's...
one of the most powerful things, that digital asset is going to become so valuable for nonprofits moving forward. Those are the things, those relationships that you're building, because you go back to the why. Now you have that company, that Fortune 500 company that's participating in a food bank event, but now you're creating a video that's there that they can use on their social side. They want content. They want, why do I want to work for this company? We want to work for this company because we partner with San Diego Food Bank and we do all these incredible things throughout the year. Now you have something that's working for you.
Yeah, we get these heavy hitters and elected officials or whoever that come in for a tour. The warehouse, there's a photo. It goes out on social media, and people are saying, "Oh, wow, Gary Rich from WD-40 was at the San Diego Food Bank."
That.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
He is the nicest guy, and I'm like,
so cool.
So it just builds us up, right? It just people say, "Wow, maybe this is something I need to be a part of."
At WD-40, they have, I've heard about them on Entre Leadership podcast, and they talk about how high their rate of satisfaction for people working in the company is. It's like one of the highest.
Well, that's Gary's thing, and Gary, Ken Blanchard, who's the guru of management and all that. So they've written Gary, he wrote a book with Ken Blanchard, who's, like I said, the guru of management, and he personalized the book. I just got it yesterday in the mail, and instead of writing me a note saying thanks for the tour, he gave me a copy of the book and said, "Keep up the good work. You guys are doing great stuff there. It's all about the employees. It's all about that sort of thing." And I literally got
that's
that yesterday.
So cool.
I got that yesterday in the mail.
That's so
really
cool.
Yeah.
That's very, very, very impressive. And you guys are all over social, which is something that
guy on the right over there.
Your
listeners can't see. He owns pawn shops.
Really?
And I'm fascinated with pawn shops. I've never been to a pawn shop. He's going to take me in and give me a tour, and it just looks like Costco, really. But it's crazy.
Well, SD Food Bank is that's a social handle, and that's how people can find you. We appreciate you, seriously,
guys. Thanks so much for coming out.
So much.
Yeah,
to
it was
Derek
an honor, total honor, and we love just to have mentors like you that we can look up to and learn from. And it's like Sean said, it's an honor to have you here to sit down with us for an hour and shoot the shit.
That's very kind of you.
We've been so fortunate, to have people like Gene Goycochea, who's our barbecue mentor, and then Randy Gill, who passed away last year, but he gave us the use of his smoker, and that's something that Derek and I take very seriously, and the more opportunities that we can have to use that smoker, which I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Because, we definitely need to talk, because we can.
I will be stalking you. I'm already thinking about different things you guys could do and get involved in.
Yeah,
and good for you guys. I mean, hopefully we can help you build your business.
And one of the cool things about the podcast is we've had so many other barbecue restaurant owners, other restaurant owners that love to do exactly what we're doing. Like-minded people that are focused on bigger picture stuff, and having partnerships with people like you doing great things.
And we've got a great relationship in the music community here because of the San Diego Blues Festival. So we'll get national acts, but then we'll probably have 5-6 local acts, and and they come out to a lot of our events, and they give us a great deal on the bands and all that. Too bad you guys aren't in North County, because we do a barbecue and blues event up in North County, but that's a little far from Spring Valley. So maybe we'll do something down here.
We can travel.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back next week with a special guest from Yelp San Diego, Yelp Elite, Brad. We're going to be digging deep into digital marketing with Brad. But thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
A lot of fun. Thank you. Beat sitting in the office.
We look forward to our Kool-Aid tour.
Right.
You got to drink deep,
Kool-Aid.
deep and long.
Right on. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.